Karen had always prided herself on her perfectly manicured yard. Each blade of grass was trimmed to perfection, and colorful flowers bloomed in neat arrangements. But there was one thing that had begun to bother her more and more, the large oak tree just beyond her property line. This 30-year-old tree was a majestic sight, towering above the neighborhood, but it brought with it a host of problems that Karen couldn't overlook. Every autumn, the oak would shed its leaves, sending them drifting into her yard. Karen felt like she spent half of her weekends raking up piles of crunchy foliage. It seemed like the tree had made it its mission to invade her pristine space. More than that, the tree blocked sunlight from reaching her garden and patio, making her outdoor areas less enjoyable. Frustrated and feeling at wit's end, Karen decided that she had had enough. She began filing multiple complaints with the Homeowners Association, HOA, detailing her grievances about the tree. In several heated discussions, she demanded its removal, claiming that it lowered property values and ruined the aesthetic of their neighborhood. Her complaints echoed through the HOA meetings, where other residents watched in surprise as she insisted on getting rid of what many saw as a symbol of beauty and life. Her relentless pursuit eventually drew attention from her neighbors. Whispers passed among them about Karen's strong stance against the oak tree. Some residents even began to worry about how far she would go in wanting it removed. What they didn't yet know was that this oak tree carried a significance far beyond mere leaves and sunlight, a history woven into the very fabric of their community itself. As the weeks went by, Karen's frustration with the oak tree grew into a fervent obsession. She began attending every Homeowners Association, HOA, meeting, where she would passionately argue for the tree's removal. Each time she spoke, her voice grew louder, filled with a mix of irritation and determination. "This tree is ruining my yard," she would exclaim, gesturing wildly. "It drops leaves everywhere and blocks my sunlight. It has to go." The other members of the HOA listened in disbelief. Many residents cherished the oak, often remarking on its beauty and the shade it provided during hot summer days. Karen, however, remained undeterred. She presented her case with charts and photos of her yard, highlighting every leaf that had fallen and every shadow that crept across her garden. Her demands escalated. At one point, she even suggested that the HOA should pay for the removal costs, claiming it was a matter of community aesthetics. The HOA board members attempted to reason with her, explaining that the tree was not just any tree, it had been planted in honor of a child who had passed away many years ago. They encouraged Karen to consider this history and how the community held it dear. But Karen brushed aside their explanations, insisting that personal grievances took precedence over sentimental values. Her relentless pursuit led to whispers among her neighbors. Some started to see her as the villain in this unfolding drama, while others worried about what she might do next. Despite receiving pushback from the community, Karen pressed on with her complaints, fueled by a growing sense of entitlement and frustration. Little did she know that her actions were about to set off a chain of events that would change everything for her, and for the oak tree, forever. It was during one particularly heated HOA meeting that the board decided it was time to address the elephant in the room, Karen's relentless campaign against the oak tree. After a string of her impassioned speeches, the HOA president finally stood up, cleared his throat, and spoke with a solemn tone. "Karen," he began, shifting the focus of their discussion, "there's something you and the community really need to understand about this tree." The room fell silent as all eyes turned to Karen. Confident she would finally get her way, she leaned in, ready for what she thought would be another argument that would support her case. Instead, the president shared the touching story behind the oak tree. It had been planted years ago in memory of a young child who had tragically passed away. The child had loved nature and playing outside, and planting that tree had been a way for the community to honor their memory. Surprised and momentarily speechless, Karen felt a wave of emotions wash over her. She had dismissed the significance of the tree entirely, seeing it only as an obstacle in her perfectly manicured yard. Stunned by this revelation, she watched as neighbors nodded in agreement with their president's words, recalling memories of the child and how much they cherished the tree. "Removing this oak would mean erasing a part of our collective history," he continued, emphasizing how it served as a place for reflection and remembrance for many families in the neighborhood. As whispers filled the room about how deeply rooted everyone's affection was for the tree, Karen felt an unfamiliar pang of shame. She realized that her battle was not just about leaves or sunlight, it was about something far deeper than she had ever considered. This moment would challenge her perception and ultimately shape how she would respond next. As news spread throughout the community about the oak tree's true significance, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Neighbors who had once remained silent during Karen's complaints began to unite in support of the tree. They organized a gathering under its branches, reaching out to share their memories of the child it memorialized. Stories poured out, recounting how beloved the young one had been, bringing smiles and laughter to many, even as it brought a few tears to their eyes. The residents decided that they would hold a candlelight vigil beneath the oak tree. They decorated the area with candles and flowers, turning the once controversial spot into a serene place of honor. Families gathered with their children, sharing tales of the joy that the child had brought into their lives. They remembered how the tree had grown alongside the community, serving as a reminder of love, loss, and the bonds they shared. As evening fell and the flickering lights illuminated the tree's massive trunk, the sense of togetherness deepened. Each flicker of a candle seemed to reflect not just a memory, but also their collective decision to stand against Karen's complaints. They quietly resolved that they would not let one person's insistence on removal overshadow what the oak represented, the resilience of their community and the importance of remembering those they had lost. Feeling overwhelmed by the outpouring of support for the tree, Karen watched from afar, realizing she had underestimated her neighbors' attachment to it. The vigil became a symbol of her misplaced priorities and her failure to see beyond her own yard. As she saw families touching the trunk gently and whispering loving thoughts, she could no longer ignore how deeply rooted this oak was in their hearts, and thus in the fabric of their neighborhood. This pivotal moment sparked a new sense of reflection within her, challenging her to reconsider not only her views about the tree but also about what it meant to be part of a community. The night of the candlelight vigil arrived, and the air was filled with a sense of reverence and anticipation. Families gathered under the sprawling branches of the oak tree, each bringing candles and flowers to decorate the area. The soft glow from the candles illuminated the faces of those who had come to honor the child's memory, creating a serene atmosphere that transformed the once controversial space into a sacred gathering place. As people arrived, they exchanged quiet greetings, their eyes reflecting both sadness and joy as they shared stories of the child whose life had impacted so many. Parents spoke of their children playing under the tree's shade, while others recalled how it had served as a backdrop for birthday parties and community picnics. Laughter mixed with tears as memories flowed, connecting everyone present in a way that transcended their individual experiences. At the center of it all stood a large wooden sign that read, "In Loving Memory." It served as a reminder of why they were there. The oak was not merely a tree, it was a living tribute to a life that brought happiness to their community. As twilight deepened, residents lit their candles, and one by one, they took turns speaking aloud their thoughts and wishes. Some shared anecdotes that made everyone smile, while others expressed heartfelt wishes for peace and remembrance. The warmth of camaraderie enveloped them all as they stood together in support of the tree. They resolved not only to preserve it but also to ensure its legacy continued by caring for it as a community. From afar, Karen watched this deep connection unfold and felt a newfound respect for what she had previously dismissed as an inconvenience. Surrounded by flickering lights and heartfelt stories, she found herself reflecting on her own journey with this oak and how it had sparked an unexpected awakening within her, one that made her rethink what it truly meant to belong. As the candlelight vigil came to a close, Karen stood at a distance, feeling increasingly isolated from the warmth and unity that enveloped her neighbors. The flickering lights illuminated their faces, filled with emotion and shared memories, something she realized she had pushed away in her pursuit to rid herself of the oak tree. While they embraced the legacy of love and remembrance, Karen felt a heavy weight in her chest, an uncomfortable reminder of the path she had chosen. In that moment of solitude, her mind raced with conflicting thoughts. She had seen herself as justified in wanting the tree removed, after all, it had disrupted her ideal yard. But now, watching families hug each other near the very tree she wanted gone, she began to question her motivations. Was it truly just about leaves and sunlight? Or was there something deeper at play, an unwillingness to appreciate the memories tied to that oak? Karen thought about how misunderstood she felt. As much as she tried to voice her frustrations, no one seemed to understand her perspective. They viewed her as the villain in this story, and perhaps they were right. Still struggling with feelings of resentment and confusion, Karen contemplated what steps to take next. Should she confront them again? Apologize for her past behavior? But deep down, another idea flickered in her mind: maybe it was time for a change within herself. The community's bond around the oak tree revealed something she hadn't anticipated, an opportunity for connection rather than conflict. As Karen shifted uncomfortably under the weight of her thoughts, she realized that moving forward meant reevaluating not just how she viewed the tree but also how she perceived her neighbors and their shared experiences. This journey would not be easy, it would require humility and understanding, but perhaps it was a journey worth taking after all. Determined to mend her relationship with the community, Karen felt compelled to issue an apology. However, the motivation behind her words was muddled, overshadowed by her lingering frustration and misunderstanding of the situation. She stood before her neighbors at the next HOA meeting, her heart racing as she prepared to speak. I just want to say I'm sorry for how I acted about the tree," she began, but her voice lacked sincerity. "I realize now that it means a lot to many of you." As she looked out at the faces in the crowd, she noticed some were still skeptical, arms crossed and brows furrowed. Yet, instead of expressing genuine remorse or acknowledging the deeper significance of the oak tree, Karen continued with a list of complaints that had initially driven her actions. "But honestly," she added clumsily, "it really does drop a lot of leaves and block sunlight. I just want my yard to look nice." The room fell silent as her neighbors exchanged glances. It was clear they expected something more heartfelt from her, an acknowledgement not just of their feelings but also of how her actions had affected their community spirit. Instead, they heard a half-hearted apology that felt disingenuous. Feeling the weight of their disappointment, Karen retreated from the meeting, convinced she had done enough to smooth things over. However, social media had other plans. Clips from her apology began circulating online, and before long, she found herself featured in a viral, Top 10 Worst Karens compilation. The laughter and mockery echoed in her mind as she glanced at the comments, realizing that her attempt at reconciliation had backfired spectacularly. This moment hit hard. It wasn't just about her reputation anymore. The misunderstanding lingered painfully as Karen faced not only the backlash but also a growing realization that true change required more than mere words, it needed authenticity and understanding towards the community she had once pushed away. The fallout from Karen's insincere apology quickly spiraled out of her control. What she thought would be a step toward mending fences instead unleashed a wave of social media attention. Clips of her awkward apology began surfacing online, and the footage caught the eye of various internet users who found humor in her misguided attempts to placate her neighbors. Within days, her name became synonymous with the term Karen, and various videos compiled her moments into a viral, Top 10 Worst Karens list. As people shared their reactions, comments flooded in, ranging from disbelief to outright mockery. Memes started circulating that depicted Karen's face next to outrageous captions illustrating her complaints, further embedding her into the internet culture she had never wanted to be part of. Caught up in this whirlwind, Karen felt both embarrassed and enraged as she scrolled through the countless videos showcasing her blunders. It was surreal for her to see herself portrayed as an antagonist for merely wanting to improve her yard. However, it was clear that many saw her actions as selfish and tone-deaf given the emotional resonance of the oak tree's history. What stung the most wasn't just the public ridicule but also realizing how far removed she was from truly understanding the community's values. The comments echoed in her mind, "She just doesn't get it," or "How could she be so insensitive?" Each remark pierced deeper than she anticipated, forcing her to confront not only how others perceived her but also how poorly she had handled a situation that could have fostered connection rather than division. The viral fame brought with it an unexpected lesson on empathy and community, a lesson Karen wished she had learned long before becoming an online sensation for all the wrong reasons. As she navigated this new reality, she finally understood that real change would require more than words. It needed genuine action and heartfelt connection with those whose lives were intertwined with the oak tree she once sought to remove. As Karen continued to navigate the fallout from her viral moment, she found herself reflecting deeply on the nature of public perception. The attention she garnered was not what she had ever intended, but it taught her invaluable lessons about how one's actions could shape not only individual reputations but also community dynamics. In her pursuit of personal satisfaction, achieving a yard free from falling leaves and shadows, she had forgotten the impact of her actions on those around her. While she viewed the oak tree solely as an inconvenience, others cherished it as a symbol of love and loss. This stark contrast in perspectives highlighted a significant truth: selfishness can cloud judgment and alienate individuals from their communities. Observing the memes and comments online, Karen began to understand how quickly public opinion could shift based on a few careless words or actions. What had once seemed like a minor annoyance for her spiraled into public scrutiny and ridicule that she could never have anticipated. It was a sobering realization that there is little room for empathy when one is fixated solely on personal grievances. Rather than being embraced for her apology, Karen became known as a cautionary tale of how selfishness can lead to negative consequences. She recognized that communities thrive on understanding and mutual respect, and that failing to acknowledge or appreciate these elements can jeopardize relationships. This introspection ignited within her a desire to change, not just for herself, but for the benefit of those around her. Karen began thinking of ways to actively demonstrate her commitment to reconnecting with her neighbors, volunteering for community cleanups or participating in local events honoring the oak tree. She realized that rebuilding trust would take time and genuine effort, but if she truly wanted to reclaim her place within the community, she would have to embrace humility and empathy in every action moving forward. As the dust settled from the chaos that had consumed her life, Karen began to appreciate the true essence of community. It was more than just a collection of houses or shared spaces, it was a tapestry woven together by the memories, emotions, and experiences of its members. The oak tree that she once viewed only as an inconvenience became a powerful symbol, a testament to love, loss, and resilience. Standing beneath its branches, she reflected on how easily one can overlook the significance of shared symbols in their pursuit of personal desires. The tree represented not only a lost child but also the strength and unity of the neighborhood as they rallied together to honor that memory. Each leaf that fell had once been an emblem of joy in someone's life, each shadow cast was a reminder of cherished moments spent under its canopy. Through her journey, Karen learned that empathy is essential for healing relationships and fostering connections within a community. She realized that taking the time to understand others' perspectives promotes deeper bonds and mutual respect. This understanding would be crucial for her as she sought to re-establish her place among her neighbors. With newfound resolve, Karen committed to participating actively in community events, helping organize cleanups, and contributing to local gatherings that celebrated their shared history. She understood now that rebuilding trust wouldn't happen overnight, it required consistent effort and genuine intentions. In time, Karen's actions began to speak louder than her past mistakes. By respecting and honoring meaningful symbols like the oak tree, she not only showed her neighbors that she valued their memories but also rebuilt her own sense of belonging within the community. The experience taught her that while perceptions can change rapidly based on one's actions, it is through empathy and respect for others that true bonds are formed and nurtured, creating a stronger, more connected neighborhood for everyone.